Welcome. My name is Roberto Allers. I'll be going over Chapter 5 in the book International Business Competing in the Global Marketplace, 10th edition. A concept is ethical issues in international business. Different factors that create ethical issues are political issues within the country, the developing country's laws, and the economic development of the country, and understanding that cultures change from nation to nation. Most common ethical issues include employment practice, human rights, environment pollution, corruption, and moral obligations. Employment practice. When work condition is inferior in host nation to multinational's home, even though bad work conditions may be legal, which nation's work conditions should be used? Let's use Nike as an example. Nike found itself in the center of a storm of protests when news reports revealed that working conditions at many of the subcontractors were very poor. It was reported that Vietnam workers were getting paid 20 cents an hour, and the standard living wage was $3 a day. Of course, Nike subcontractors were not breaking any rules by hiring people at this wage. Of course, Nike found itself in a wave of demonstrations and consumer boycotts. Basic human rights are still not respected in many developing nations. Such rights being taken advantage of in developed nations such as freedom of association, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of movement, freedom of political repression, and so on. Let's use South Africa as an example. During the days of white rule and apartheid law was a system that denied basic political rights to the majority of non-white population of South Africa. This law prohibited blacks from being placed in positions where they would manage whites. GM, which had significant activities in South Africa, was the forefront of the trend. GM adopted what came to be called Sullivan Principles, named after Leon Sullivan, a black Baptist minister and a member of GM's board of directors. Sullivan argued that it was ethically justified for GM to operate in South Africa as long as two conditions were fulfilled. First, the company should not obey apartheid law in its own South African operation as a form of passive protest. Second, the company should do with all in its power to make sure that this apartheid law is abolished. These principles were later widely spread within the U.S. companies working in South Africa. When it comes to environmental pollution, should multinationals feel free to pollute in developing nations? This led to the concept of tragedy of the commons created by Garrett Hardin. Garrett Hardin used this concept of tragedy of the commons to describe 16th century England. In 16th century England, it was advantageous for farmers to have as much livestock as possible, which led to overgrazing, degradation of the commons, and loss of much needed supplements. Today, it's more known as global warming. Though it's legal to pollute in underdeveloped countries, is it still ethical? When it comes to corruption, think Lockheed in Japan. In the 1970s, Carl Kochian, the president of Lockheed, made a $12.6 million payment to Japanese agents and government officials to secure a large order of Lockheed's TriStar jet from Nippon Air. When the payments were discovered, U.S. officials charged Lockheed with falsification of records and tax violations. Although such payments were supposed to be accepted business practice within Japan, they might be viewed as an exceptionally lavish form of gift-giving. The government minister in question were criminally charged, one committed suicide, and the government fell in disgrace, and the Japanese people were outraged. Apparently such a payment was not accepted way of doing business in Japan. Multinationals must understand they have moral obligations, which led to concepts such as social responsibilities, refers to the idea that business people should consider the social consequences of their economic actions when making business decisions, and that there should be presumption in favor of decisions that have both good economic and social consequences. Noblesse oblige is a French term that refers to honorable and benevolent behavior considered to be responsible of people of high noble birth. Thank you and have a great day.